There's a name that for decades pretty much defined international terrorism: Carlos the Jackal. He was this almost mythical figure, right? A ghost, a mastermind, a killer who became this weirdly romanticized figure that kept governments up at night all over the world. But who was he, really? Was he this legendary revolutionary, this unstoppable assassin? Or was the truth a little more complicated? To get to the bottom of it, we've got to peel back all those layers of myth and Hollywood fantasy and just look at the actual man. And here he is. This isn't some character from a movie. This is Ilich Ramírez Sánchez, a guy from Venezuela who somehow became one of the most wanted men on the planet. And his story, believe it or not, really starts with his name, which, as you'll see, was basically a total accident. Okay, so let's dig into that. How does a guy named Ilich Ramírez Sánchez end up with a name like Carlos the Jackal? It's actually a perfect lesson in how legends get made, and sometimes they're built on almost nothing. All right, first part, Carlos. Super simple. It wasn't some cool name he picked for himself, nope. It was just a code name the PFLP, that's the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, gave him. Why? Well, he was from South America. It was practical, but that's about it. Not very scary, right? But the Jackal? Now this is where the story gets kind of wild. That name came from a journalist. After a raid on one of Carlos's apartments, this reporter saw a copy of the thriller novel The Day of the Jackal. The punchline? It wasn't even his book. So yeah, one of the most feared terrorists in the world got his legendary nickname from a book he probably never even read. You can't make this stuff up. So we've debunked the name. Now let's get into the man himself. How does a kid from Venezuela end up on this path? Well, it turns out his course was set really, really early on. I mean, his childhood was just soaked in ideology. His dad was a rich Marxist lawyer who named him Ilich after, you guessed it, Vladimir Lenin. And his younger brothers? Their names were Lenin and Vladimir. Yeah. He was shipped off to a guerrilla training camp in Cuba, then went to a university in Moscow famous for scooping up foreign communists. The guy was basically engineered to be a revolutionary from day one. And in 1970, all that training led to this. He heads to the Middle East and officially signs up with the PFLP, this hardcore Marxist-Leninist group. This is the turning point, you know? He goes from just believing in the cause to actually being a soldier for it. Now, his career was full of bombings and assassinations, but there was one single operation that made him a household name, a name to be feared anyway. It was incredibly brazen, incredibly violent, and it struck right at the core of the world's economy. The place? Vienna, 1975. The target? An OPEC meeting. Think about that. You've got all the world's most powerful oil ministers gathered in a single room. If you're a terrorist trying to make a splash, it literally does not get any bigger than this. And the plan was just audacious. He and his small team of 6 were going to storm the place, grab over 60 hostages, we're talking major political figures, demand that their message get broadcast on the radio, and then get a plane and a massive ransom to get away clean. But let's be clear, this wasn't some neat movie-style heist. Right from the start, people died. 3 of them, an Austrian cop, an Iraqi staffer, and a Libyan delegate were all killed in the initial attack. This whole thing was bloody from the get-go. So he gets the plane, the hostages are eventually freed, but then there's this whole mystery with the money. A huge ransom was paid, somewhere between 20 and 50 million bucks. Carlos's story was that the money got lost by the revolution. His bosses in the PFLP, they weren't buying it. They were convinced he pocketed the cash. That, plus the fact he didn't follow orders to execute a couple of the oil ministers, got him booted from the organization. So now he's out on his own, a freelancer, basically. He becomes a terrorist for hire, bouncing between different countries in the Eastern Bloc who could use his particular set of skills. He was playing a dangerous game, but he was also just a piece on a much bigger Cold War chessboard. And you can really see how his world just starts to shrink over time. For a while, he's got it made. He's protected by the Stasi in East Germany, he's got an office, staff. Then he's in Hungary, then Syria. But as the Cold War thaws, the political pressure ramps up. One by one, his protectors kick him out, until there's basically nowhere left to go, except for Sudan. And he's definitely not laying low during this period. In the early 80s, he wages this vicious bombing campaign across France. And what was it all for? He was trying to strong-arm the French government into releasing his wife, Magdalena Kopp, who'd been arrested. These attacks were just brutal. Bombs on trains, outside newspaper offices, killing 11 people and injuring over 100 more. By the time we get to the 1990s, Carlos is kind of like a dinosaur. The Cold War is over, his political protectors are all gone, and the intelligence agencies of the West are zeroing in. The net was closing, and the end of his time on the run was coming, fast. And the way they finally got him wasn't some big shootout. It was a quiet, backroom deal. The CIA and French intelligence pinpoint him in Sudan. But instead of a raid, they go a different route. They go to his protector there, a guy named Hassan al-Turabi, and they show him videos. Videos of Carlos living it up, partying, drinking, not exactly being a pious revolutionary. Then they offered Sudan some major debt relief. And just like that, a deal was made. So think about the irony here. His protector turns on him, not for all the people he killed, but because, as he put it, Carlos was just a hoodlum, not a real combatant. The end was almost pathetic. Carlos goes in for a minor operation, gets tranquilized, and wakes up on a plane to Paris. The Jackal was finally caught. Once he was back in France, the legend of Carlos the Jackal finally crashed into the cold, hard reality of a courtroom. The globe-trotting terrorist was now just another inmate, looking at a lifetime behind bars. And the verdicts just kept coming. Over the next 2 decades, he faced trial after trial. First, in 1997, for murdering 2 French agents. Then, in 2011, for that bombing campaign. And again in 2017 for another attack back in '74. The result? 3 life sentences. His career was officially over. And for more than 25 years now, this has been his world. Places like La Santé and Clairvaux prison. The so-called master of disguise, the international man of mystery, has spent the rest of his life inside some of France's most secure prisons. So what does he think about it all now? Does he have any regrets? Absolutely not. Even from prison, he's completely unrepentant. He actually boasts about the people he's killed, claiming responsibility for over 80 deaths, and still sees himself as some kind of hero of the revolution. Which kind of brings us to the big, lingering question. We know what he did. He was a cold-blooded killer who murdered civilians for money and politics. So why is the myth of Carlos the Jackal, the suave, brilliant anti-hero, still a thing in our pop culture? What is it about these figures that we just can't seem to look away from?